So we're all here today now to find out about community transport. It's obviously an important issue for everybody, as we can see from the amount of people. So access to reliable, affordable transport remains one of the most pressing issues facing communities across Wales. When people are unable to get to work, healthcare appointments, shops, leisure activities, or simply to see others, the consequences can be profound, increasing isolation, affecting health and well-being, reducing independence, and putting pressure on families and services. But across Wales, community and town councils are taking the initiative. They're developing practical local transport solutions that are grounded in community need, shaped by partnership, and designed to be sustainable. Today, we're shining a light on several councils who are leading the way and demonstrating what is possible, even with limited resources. So we're lucky enough to be joined by 4 councils today who have done just that. And they're going to tell us a little bit about their transport initiatives that they've introduced, their motivation for doing that, and some of the logistics of introducing such a scheme. We encourage you to listen, to ask questions, share your own experiences, and make connections here today. This is an open space for conversation, learning, and problem solving together. So we've got four guest councils with us today this morning that are already delivering transport, and we're going to ask them now to sort of give an overview of what they are doing. And if we could start by inviting our very own Mr. Paul Egan, for many of you will probably already know, to let us know what they are doing in Llandock. Morning, Paul.
Thank you, Vanessa. So I'll just carry on, is it?
Yes, please. If you could just give us an update, that would be really lovely on
Well, I
what
do
you're
know
doing.
many people on the screen from One Voice Wales, but I work for One Voice Wales, but I'm also the clerk to Llandock Community Council. That's situated just outside Penarth and borders with Cardiff. It's a population of 2,100 at the 2021 census, but it's rising. We've had one new block of flats built there for single individuals. We're having another block of affordable flats built there as well. And there's another large housing estate which is pending detailed planning permission. I'll just stop for the phone to go, sorry. Okay, that's gone. That's where the council is located. That's the population we have, and a significant number of the population are aged over 60, and a good proportion as well over the age of 70 and over the age of 80. So there's a lot of older people there. So some years ago, we carried out a community survey for Llandock, and the focus was on what is the needs of the community, generally speaking. And the main demand at that time was for facilities for younger people. And as a result, on the basis of that survey, we decided we'd develop a multi-use games area, which we have got with significant grants funding, broadly based on the fact that we had the survey data, which demonstrated what the needs of the community actually were. So moving on a bit then from that survey in 2017, the council decided to undertake a survey of older people. That's people aged over 55. That's how we defined it. And we organised that survey. Survey forms were hand-delivered to every household in Llandock. We had a business reply service to enable people to respond. And actually, a lot of older people did respond. And we had about 100 forms returned through the business reply service. And we analysed those to see what the needs were. And what we found was, whereas Llandock is got like a fortress mentality of supermarkets all around our community, it takes a little while to get to them. And in some cases, it could be as much as a £10 taxi journey, probably £10 there and back as well. So quite expensive to go there. Plus, some of the people who might need transport support wouldn't necessarily be able to organise their own shopping trolley, get it into the taxi. So we felt they needed some support with that. Now, going back about 15 years ago, I think we were one of the first councils in Wales to introduce a community transport service. And at that time, took a little while to get it going. I'll tell you about the mechanics of it in a moment. Took a little while to get it going. But when we did get it going, we had um, at the peak 26 people taking advantage of it. We had 2 journeys to the different supermarkets. There's every single one you can think of within a few miles of Landock. And we had 2 journeys going on a Thursday morning with a driver. In fact, we had 2 drivers at that time, and they would pick the people up from their home, take them to different supermarkets to give a bit of variety, help them with their shopping on and off the minibus, and then back to their home outside their front door. And that worked well for about, I think it must have been 15 years. And then the pandemic hit us. And of course, we had to stop the transport service. And it took a little while to try and get it going again, um, because people were wary about mixing in confined spaces with each other. So we did try very, very hard to get it going again, but it took quite a number of years. We also struggled with a volunteer driver, which we needed to be able to use this minibus. But actually, in recent times, we found a volunteer driver, and we now have, I think it's 7 people signed up to the service. And I think that number will grow. And I'll talk about communication in a moment. Now, where do we get the minibus from? Well, there's quite a number of these organisations around, charities usually, that provide this facility. And in our case, it's Eastvale Community Transport. That is a charity set up to provide support to individuals within communities to get the basic needs of transport met. So what we do, we hire that minibus on a Thursday morning. The volunteer driver is engaged by Eastvale Community Transport, so they cover all the matters relating to insurance, suitability of the driver, and so on. The vetting and barring checks, they deal with all of that. And then the bus then comes to Landock. I provide, as clerk, the details of the people who want to have the benefit of the scheme, and the driver picks them up from their home, takes them as a group to the supermarket, and then returns them then back to their home. And the people on it absolutely love it. There's one gentleman on there whose wife drives. She said, I'm more than happy to take him to the supermarket, but he doesn't want to lose his independence. He wants to be able to get there himself under his own steam, which he can't, but he can now with the community transport service. We also have a lady on there that had a fall about a year ago and fractured some of her bones in her shoulder, which won't heal. So she finds it difficult to move around, and she welcomes that service as well. And she's a regular passenger every Thursday morning. We don't restrict it just to older people, by the way. It's available to anybody. We did have a young man who'd had an injury from an accident who signed up, but he didn't actually turn up for the bus when he went there. But the bus service is open to anyone that has a genuine need for that transport. So whereas people maybe like myself and maybe the rest of the audience here, we can get to the supermarkets very easily. I don't particularly like going, but the people on the bus, they love going, and there's something they look forward to. And I suppose the side benefit of it is that they get to know new people in the community, and I know a few of them are starting to make contact with each other. So it addresses the issue of isolation and loneliness. We also provide a coffee morning facility every month, and that started off the same thing as it is with the community transport scheme, low numbers. So what we do, we put things out on social media. Not necessarily older people are going to use that, but on the other hand, it may be that their relatives will pass the message on to them. We also produce a quarterly newsletter, which is hand delivered to every household, where we're advertising the fact that we have this community transport scheme. But we're still finding it difficult to communicate with what we believe are people who need this service. When we did the older persons survey, 41 out of the 100 people who were surveyed didn't know anything about the scheme. They seemed to indicate that they would welcome having that knowledge. But the issue we're finding is how do you get to them and tell them about the scheme and make them feel comfortable about using the minibus? So I think We will build up. My estimate is I think we will get there back to where we were, maybe 25 to 30 people benefiting from the service. But we're taking it's pretty slow progress. So that's one of the issues we've encountered. Eastvale Community Transport is an excellent facility for the area. There are many buses specially adapted. And what we do is where the council pay Eastvale Community Transport, they only charge £5 per passenger journey there and back on the Thursday. And the council pay that figure, but then it's offset then by inviting the passengers to make a small donation of £2, which isn't bad for a return journey and help with their shopping as well. The feedback we've had from the people who are benefiting is really good. They've even given me permission to have their photograph taken and used in our advertising around the community. And I'm hoping that will eventually result in more people taking benefit. We're not looking just to fill the bus. We want to fill a genuine demand, which I believe still exists in our community. I don't know whether there's anything else I need to say. It's very simple to administer. The legal power is the Local Government and Rating Act 1997. So we've got the legal power to do this. And the finances, well, £5 per passenger journey. It would cost the council a few thousand if we had the bus filled. Okay, the council are prepared to do that because it feels it should spend more of its budget on helping older people or people with physical disabilities, whereas in the past they've spent a lot of their money on meeting the needs of young people. So that's where we're at in Landock. If you need any technical advice on community transport, there is a Community Transport Association in Wales, and I think they're very helpful. Their material on their website is really good. So if anyone's thinking of doing that, then perhaps that's one of the first places to look. And I know there are other providers of these minibuses. Certainly in our area, there's Green Links, for example, but the council chose Eastvale Community Transport as their preferred supplier. So I think that's probably said enough about Landock. So there we are.
Thank you, Paul. That was a really helpful introduction to the community transport scheme in Llandock. If I could ask Councillor Lyndon Jones now, who is here to represent Bishopston on their scheme, which is a slightly different take on how they operate their service in Bishopston, which I've had the pleasure of going out to visit. And there is information on our website relating to the Bishopston Community Transport Bus. But yeah, good morning, Councillor Jones. If you would give us some information on the project you run in Bishopston.
Great morning, everyone. And our scheme is that in the Bishopston Community Bus, it travels from Bishopston into an area called Mumbles, which was quite a shopping centre, and there's no direct bus service to that from the Bishopston village. In the Bishopston ward, about 60% of the people are retirement age, so obviously, you know, they're not necessarily driving, some of them, so they use the community bus. What we did is that we hire a bus, like Paul mentioned now. So we hire a bus and driver. It's an 18-seater bus, and it travels. We've got it booked for a Wednesday and a Friday each week. Okay. What we've done is to register that with the traffic commissioners, so we get concessionary fares. So obviously, if you've got a bus pass, you don't pay, which is obviously helpful. The bus is underwritten by the Bishopston Community Council, and we've got 3 people who are on the transport committee. That's myself. Even though I'm not a member of the community council, I'm the city and county councillor for Swansea, for Bishopston. But there's myself and 2 members of the community council, Julie Jones and and Ian smelt. We then run and operate the organisation of that particular service. Okay, yeah. So we've got the concessionary fares. So we've got fare-paying pensioners who've got a bus pass don't pay, which is helpful. We also introduced a hop-on, hop-off scheme because you've got the village of Bishopston, Merton, and Mansfield, which is in the top part of the ward. And if you're a fare-paying passenger and had to, you wouldn't be able to get right round the circuit. So what we do there is that we charge £1 single and £1.50 return to go right round the village or the villages, and that is used quite a bit. And likewise, the bus goes to Mumbles, and once we get into the Mumbles sort of area, it's £2 and £2.50 return. And that, as I say, a number of fare-paying passengers jump on that bus, and that's helped, the service. We advertise the bus on Facebook and in the Community Council magazine, and also there's a magazine that covers a number of the wards on the Gower Peninsula, and we put that within. I get a column there, and I put it into that sort of column. What we have found is that it's a lifeline for a lot of people. On those 2 days, we are now picking up between 650 and 700 people a month. So a lot of people are using that scheme, and we are actually, whilst I said it was underwritten by Bishopston Community Council, we actually are making a profit. And which is helpful, and we've been able to coming up to Christmas now, we've got a service starting on Saturday for the 4 weeks running up into Christmas. We've got a Saturday service, and that is going to be free for everyone, which is an extra bonus, if you like. Issues we've got now is that the bus is too small, and we need more days. Those are the issues. So probably to a degree a victim of our success on it, but it's hugely popular and is a real lifeline to a lot of people. And that is in a nutshell is what it is. But it is a great success. People love it. We've got our driver Kathy is absolutely brilliant, and she looks after the passengers well as well. So but it's a real success story. But we have those issues now. But the bus being too small, and we could expand it.
Thank you, Councillor Lyndon Jones. That was really, really interesting. And obviously everybody will have a chance to ask further questions of our councillors and clerks here today. So bear with me. If I could ask Sandy from Abu Dhabi, she is going to talk about their scheme, which they are in the process of setting up, and just her experiences of where they are and their take on community transport. Morning, Sandy.
Morning. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I've been working for the last few months with our local district council, Gwynedd Council, with the other local councils in our area, with the Community Transport Association, and with local organisations in the local area like Dementia Active, Older People's Forum, that sort of thing. And so we've come together to try and develop a community transport scheme, because particularly in Abu Dhabi, where I live, most of it's on the hill. And there's a lot of people that either don't drive or they can't even walk down to the bus stop to go anywhere. So that's partly why we're setting it up. And we've been fortunate enough to contact and be involved with a scheme on Anglesey and Bentley, who have been running this sort of scheme for about 10 years. And so we've been talking to them, and they've allowed us to adapt their paperwork and things like that. And they've got a very successful scheme in place already. And the way it works is you have volunteer coordinators, volunteer drivers, and then obviously clients that use the scheme. So the idea is that the client phones up one of the coordinators who's on duty and books their transport maybe 24 hours in advance, and then the coordinators will then coordinate with the drivers to see who can take that person. And it's mainly for medical situations or well-being, that sort of thing. So the idea is that the drivers use their own cars. They're all DBS checked, and then the drivers get paid 45p a mile for using their car. So, and because of that, they're not taxed. There's no increase in their insurance. And if the insurance company do try to increase their premiums, there's a letter available that we can give to the insurance company to say that that shouldn't be happening. And then the volunteers just volunteer for as much or as little time as they want. So obviously there's like a spreadsheet with that details on it. The volunteer coordinators, they then have calls directed to their phone, or they can have a phone when they're on duty. And so then, like say, the client phones them, and then the coordinators speak to the drivers, and then the drivers can then say, yes, I can accept that, or no, I can't do that. So there's no obligation on them to do it, even although they're on duty. So the clients then, they need to sign up to the scheme and become members, if you like, of the scheme. And they're then assessed prior to being accepted to the scheme, because it's things like, do they have any mobility issues? Will they be able to get out of like a low car, or do they need somebody with a larger car that's higher up, that sort of thing, or kind of medical issues and things like that that we just need to be aware of. So somebody needs to be able to kind of take that role. So we've got somebody who's an ex-nurse who's going to do that for us. And like I say, initially it'll focus on medical appointments, shopping, attending wellbeing groups and that sort of thing as well. And then where the funding comes from. So like I say, the drivers get paid 45p a mile. That comes from the client who's using the service. But if I'm a volunteer driver, there's then that dead mileage between myself and the client's house. So that gets paid out of a central pot. And so there obviously needs to be a bit of funding to do that. So Gwynedd Council, our district council, are very keen for this to be set up, because they would like to use it as a pilot to spread out across the rest of Gwynedd. And so they're happy to put funding into it and things. But then our local councils have all said, you know, we can put in a bit of funding as well to cover that kind of dead mileage and the DBS checks too. So it's all kind of coming together. So we have a public meeting next week where we'll be giving it out to the whole public and seeing if we can get volunteers involved then, and other things, and to let everybody about it. So it's kind of not quite there yet, but we're working on it.
Thank you, Sandy. That's, yeah, it's really interesting to sort of see a different side and a different take on how you are moving community transport forward in your community. We were hoping to hear from Ryan at Bedlinog, but unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances this morning, he is now unable to join us. So thank you to our other councillors for presenting briefly on your projects. But what we intend to do now is move into 2 breakout groups.
Right, that was really interesting. Lots of questions there for Lyndon in our group. Lots of varied questions. Obviously, we've got different sized councils with different challenges, and Lyndon was able to assist obviously where he could, and it was quite nice to hear councils asking the questions of each other as well, and other councils being able to jump in as well where their schemes differ, or they have offered alternatives to community transport opportunities. So really good. As I said, we will go to another breakout room where, if you weren't with the council that you were hoping to, you will have the opportunity in the next session. But Vanessa, did you have anything to feedback from your group, or was it pretty much the same?
Yeah, there was, you know, obviously everybody's got these challenges within their communities with relating to community transport. So this is a good opportunity to ask questions of each other and find out what everybody else's challenges are in their communities. I think one of the big things is getting people to their doctor's surgeries and appointments and hospital appointments, and you know that is an issue for everybody, but you know, it's not one size fits all for everybody's community, so it's quite nice to hear from each other.
Okay, so hopefully you've all found that really useful to have the opportunity to ask the questions of all three councils in your breakout rooms. Lots of great discussion in our group, and one of the main issues seems to be firstly identifying what that need is within your community, and we had a few suggestions of how you can go about that. Obviously a questionnaire is the most obvious means of finding out what the need is, and there's a couple of places where agencies will assist you in building your questionnaire as well that you can send out to your community. So the CTA is one of them, the Community Transport Association, as we mentioned earlier. They're great at helping you to put together a questionnaire. And Paul mentioned also the Older People's Commission as well. So we'll put the links for both of those in the chat, and they may well be a great starting point for anyone who's looking to start at the start, really, and get their initiative moving. So, so Vanessa, was there anything that came back from your group at all that you wanted to share?
Bear with me, I'm just putting Emma Bingham's name into the chat as the person to contact at the Community Transport Association. She is the officer for Wales there, and she's really knowledgeable. So if you are sort of needing that sort of advice and support, they've got everything that you can get in touch with them, no problem at all. Yeah, I think basically everybody is sort of got the same issues with regards to community transport that sort of came out of what we've been talking about in our group, and concerns about volunteering and using volunteers seems to be an issue with volunteering driving and potentially volunteers for a car scheme. So the sort of route that Bishopston and Paul has taken in Llandock with actually using a service seems to be a viable option for community and town councils to consider. I think moving from here, I think what is the next step for councils, for everybody that's sort of joined us today? You're all here because you recognise there are potential issues in your community with community transport. So what are your thoughts on what you think about doing next? Does anybody want to start with any questions or any thoughts?
No. Can I come in?
Yes, John.
Yeah. The Vale of Graney is a small community council. There's a lot of good ideas, but we are a small council and we are 3 miles, from the nearest small town and then 6 miles from a town. So we are looking at how we can do community transport or get some transport back into the area where years ago we used to have the bus coming round and take them to town on a market day. Whereas how to keep things viable? A lot of good ideas come forward, and at the moment we're a small council, so we're looking at what we can do. That's the object, and there's got a there's got a lot of good suggestions what perhaps we can do. So that's where I am.
Thanks, John.
Funding is going to be our biggest, because of the size of the council, how we fund things,
Has anybody else got thoughts on funding? Sorry, let Jerry's
Jerry's
got your hand up.
Yeah, it wasn't thoughts on funding so much as it was thoughts on what we're going to looking to do next. One of the things that's been useful about this and also other forums is the variety of, if you like, ways to meet a particular need. I think I need to try to kickstart the community council, but I think to try to close that gap between what isn't there and what is there is tell some stories that you've been telling today, and say, well, there are a number of different kinds of solutions to this. There are a number of steps that we need to take, and actually turn it into perhaps a draft step by step. This is what is next, if you like, and at least start on the first couple of steps. And that's certainly what I'm going to do.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere, haven't you? So yeah, definitely sounds. So at least you've got some thoughts on how to move it forward. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Just listen to Jerry and just listen. Sorry, John Hughes here. Just listen to Jerry and Monera. He most probably could ask the two lads that run in Wrexham for $500,000, and they'd be able to put a bus scheme in for him. You know.
Correct, to the stadium, is it? I'll be
I'm
on that bus.
I'm a big supporter. I started when I was 40 years old going to watch Wrexham, so I had my own pile of stones to stand on.
Yeah.
But that's going back a long, long time, and they could have played better last night. But that's a completely another story. But
Yeah, let's not go there, John.
Yeah, what I'm gathering from today's meeting is there are really enthusiastic people on this. And listen to John Morris there, with a small community council, it's difficult. But the thing to do is to ring up the 4 or 5 next door to you and see what they think. Because really, communication, we talk about buses, well, that's communication. But there should be a lot more communication between the community councils. Because if you're short of money, are they all short of money? What do they do with it? Etc. etc. I'm on various committees with One Voice Wales, and the membership is doing so many fantastic things, and I will most probably go and rattle a few ears at the next community council meeting regarding the situation we have. You can't just abandon people, especially the ill people, because they can't get to a surgery. Where are they going to go? I mean, it's crazy. We keep hearing on the news that that we're all old. The way they phrase it on the news is quite disgusting. We're still alive. An aged community. Well, for God's sake, we've paid in, so we can expect something. And I can't get away from this meeting fast enough to write a report and to our clerk, who will be really pleased to hear from me. Inverted commas.
Thanks,
That's fantastic, John.
Fantastic. Sandy's got a hand up.
But there we go.
Yeah, well, 2 things just to reiterate what John's just said, really. It's because I've been talking to the other councils in my area, local community councils. So there's 4, I think, that I've been talking to about it, and they all think community transport's a really important thing. So now that we can start working together better. But the other thing is, when we've been speaking to the district council with Gwynedd Council, their funding officers have been saying that the days are gone really when individual councils or organisations can apply for funding. I mean, they can apply for funding, but they're less likely to get it. What they're looking at is for collaboration between different organisations, different councils, to put in one funding application rather than lots of little ones. And they're looking at those a lot more favourably now, certainly in North Wales. So it certainly looks like the way to go forward is to collaborate, I think. And it was also just to say that if you want to give out my email address and stuff, Vanessa, afterwards, then I'm more than happy to talk to people about the way we're setting things up, because it's slightly different to Paul's.
Okay, that's great, Sandy. I'm just going to refer to a couple of things we've had in the chat. Roger, I think you asked, it might have been a while ago and at the start of the meeting, you had a question for Bishopston asking how often the bus runs. Was that answered for you during the breakout?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. That's fine. And then Chris Marshfield from Marshfield Community Council mentions that a family member of mine was the transport manager of a community transport scheme in Devon, but it was a fully paid job. So that's just to show how it might be working in other areas. Obviously, it's down to money again. And then Marion Howells asks, Lyndon, is your driver Kathy Chamberlain by any chance?
Yes, it
She
is.
is. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
She is. She's excellent. Yeah.
Great stuff.
A real star.
Sorry, just out of interest, she's a friend of mine.
Yeah, she's
I
a
haven't been in
real
touch with her.
star. She is.
I know
In
she used to
fact, she's
work
been-
for Swansea buses sometimes. Yeah, I was wondering if it was the same person.
Yes, in fact, she just texted me when we were on air. So
All right, I'll
we
feed
look
back
after
that
Kathy.
she's been sung, her praises have been sung anyway.
Yeah, no, you know, we all tell her as well because, and all the passengers do. Yeah.
Brilliant, great, good.
So any more thoughts on how you're going to take things forward, or is there any help or anything that you think that you may need from us, or how you're going to assess what your community needs?
Will you be sending anything round, Vanessa?
Yeah, there'll be follow-up resources, definitely. We've got we're updating the guide for community transport, and we've got case study document that's available that'll be coming out shortly. So
Okay.
yeah, there will be a lot of further information that we can help you with. But if there's anything specific that you can think of now that we could maybe support with.
There will be a recording of today's session as well, which will be available in due course as well. Obviously, the breakout group sessions won't be part of that recording. But if you did want to share the recording with anyone who was unable to attend today's session, then that might be useful as well. But just to come back to Vanessa's question, what are the next steps from today? I mean, John, it was great to hear that you'll be taking this right back to your community council to be saying, look, we need to start addressing this problem. How are we going to do that? Is that something that anyone else today is thinking about? And if so, how would you present that to your council? Lauren, you have your hand raised there.
Yeah, so I'd absolutely like to connect with John and see where we can work together on this. We did, as I said, we surveyed Gwaelod to see what they needed, and at the time we were looking for voluntary transport, but we didn't have many volunteers, unfortunately, and we were working with Cardiff Council as well, and they were looking at whether they could get a vehicle for us. The trouble we've had, again, really here is with capacity, with haven't really had any councillors that were able to help, and we're kind of at capacity with the projects we've got anyway. But it is really important to me. The people in Gwaelod particularly are incredibly isolated. There are people that live right at the top of a hill, and even they can't even walk down to Taff's Well to a local shop. This is just too far, and they don't use the internet, so they can't get any shopping delivered, and they now have no bus to get to any other villages. So, you know, I mean, that's getting on for 2 years now that they've not had that service, so it's quite desperate, really. And for us, it would be brilliant, you know, if that could link up with going to St Fagans as well, going to the new surgery in Ridlava as well. So it's important. So I think it would be great if we could work together. And we have a really good relationship with County Councillor Rhys Livesey for Cardiff as well. And he's here on Tuesdays as well. So it'd be really good to contact with him as well.
Thank you, Lauren.
Anyone else who has any thoughts on how they can take today's discussion back to their council at all?
Hi there. Sorry. Dave Williams here from Garoo Valley. It's not about what's going on. We're at the very, very beginning. I just wanted to know if is there anybody here today from St. Bride's Minor Community Council? Because we're looking at joining together. I just wondered if there's anybody from that county community council. Otherwise, I need to record all of this information to pass on.
I don't think there is.
That's okay.
That's
Yeah.
okay, but there will be a copy of the recording and things. But yeah, if you need any support to contact with them, then please get back to us directly, and we can help facilitate that, Dave.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you.
We do have a suggestion here that from our team at the Cost of Living Crisis Project here about possibly a follow-up peer group just on those that maybe want to get your heads together to move projects forward, whether that might be something that's useful, whether you would benefit from further opportunities to talk and discuss what your community needs or get ideas from each other, whether a follow-up would be useful in some form. If that's something that you feel would benefit you, then maybe you could contact us at the team, and we could help to facilitate that.
Yeah.
So if there aren't any more questions from our panelists, can I just turn to each one of our councils now who presented earlier, just to sort of make a sort of closing on where they would advise councils to go, where you'd begin, what should be the start of your journey. So Sandy, if I can come to you first, just any closing thoughts?
It's a lot to do on your own. So I would go to other councils in the local area and local community groups like Older People's Forum, Dementia Active, those sort of things as well, and just see if you could have a meeting with all of them and start to collaborate with whoever might be interested to help, because otherwise it's just too daunting to do on your own.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Sandy. Paul, any thoughts?
Well, I think first of all, to establish whether there is a demand and whether people would actually support any kind of service that you put on. And I wouldn't focus just on community transport. I'd focus on the needs of the community. And depending on the size of your community, if you're the size of Landock, we've got a population now, I think it's gone up from 2,100, it's more like 2,500. We find that we can do a survey involving door-to-door survey form delivery. And it costs a bit to do a survey. It costs us with a business reply service, which is the one I would recommend. You're more likely to get forms back if you do that. But I think we costed out about £400. Not a lot to spend to make sure there is a demand. And it might not be the only demand. There might be other things that the community want more than that. And the other thing is, if you're a small council, that doesn't say you can't do anything. You could put the precept up. Just have a look what the precept increase would be to people's pockets. And often, in fact, my council's doing its budget for next year at the moment, and I think we're going to propose a 10% increase in the precept. That actually means about £9 a year for each Band D household. And if the community wants something, and they've told you that very clearly, you can justify them while you're putting the precept up to fund something that the community has said, we really want this. And with older people, for example, if that's the target group, don't forget, every young person in your community is going to be an old person somewhere or other, not necessarily in your community. So investing now is something they want you to invest with maybe in the future. Unless we have an app that sort of moves us from one place to the other without any transport, who knows? You never know, do you? Or whether artificial intelligence will jet us to wherever we want to go, I don't know. But establish the need, but look at other needs as well. Decide whether or not you want to raise the precept. You can justify it if you've got an identified demand, which is evidence-based, and then do it. Do it as a trial if you want. If it doesn't work that well, okay, you've given it a try, but sometimes you just got to do things. But get the evidence first.
Well said, Paul.
Yeah, some really sound advice there, Paul, and an interesting point you make as well, Paul, that there is always raising the precept, which is an option you may consider. And as Paul said, sometimes it could just be the tiniest of increase that can make that difference, to make those funds available to create that service that's obviously needed in lots of communities out there. So thank you very much for sharing that with us, Paul. Lyndon, if I could just turn to you next, if you may. Thank you.
Because the point that Paul made about the survey, we do surveys as well, but what we do is we don't use the reply paid, but we say you can drop them at the community centre, or you could drop them in a number of shops or pubs around the route. And we do that, and we collect them from there, and we get quite a large response. So, and that doesn't cost anything then, other than the printing of the letter. So you could use a pub and a shop or whatever around the ward. I think it is important to look at demand, see what you want. I as a councillor do that. I just got a new park, and I literally went out to everybody in the community. I did a survey to young people, and also I spoke to the school council to see what they wanted. And then they came up with their list, and we looked to deliver that. Because if I was asking, if I say, well, I think you should have X, very often what they thought was quite different to what I would have had. And really important to ask young people, because it's their community too. So, and what they want to see probably from transport. And so on. So, and their case would be on a Saturday to go in the evenings in the summer to get the sports matches and so on, and to play football. But I think, yeah, it really needs to ask. You've got to, in our case, we've got a large, Mumbles, quite a large centre. So we are going to a large centre, and we've got a base of population in the ward that we could make that work. But if you if you have only got a small village, you may need to link a number of villages where the bus would collect from, if you like, to go to a particular centre, to make it sustainable. But that would be my take. But always ask, so that you've got evidence base is really important.
Thank you, Lyndon. There's a question in the chat here from Simon asking, does anybody use any app or tools that they have to track and plan? Sorry, Simon, does that actually refer to transport need, or what is it that what is your thoughts on that?
Hi, yes, Simon here. Yes, just in terms of some of the different models people have mentioned, in terms of I guess seeing if there's a demand for it, having addresses for people to be picked up, and again being things like GDPR compliance, and ensuring obviously the safety of people if they are being picked up, and and I guess if and anything else really that people may have experienced or used in terms of this. I'm just trying to think about any digital formats essentially, or anything that helps people stay compliant.
I think this question was asked in our breakout group regarding apps, actually, Simon, and the simple answer was no, I think, and unless anyone knows any different. And it was more a case of just knowing who in the community needed that service and just working with them, really. But I'm sure that would be something that would make life a lot easier going forward. So if anyone does does know anything, or does find out anything regarding apps, then we would obviously love to hear anything around that. But thanks for the question, Simon.
That might be a good question to pass to Emma at the CTA. Actually, maybe that's something we could ask her.
Yeah, definitely.
And obviously, she's got fingers in lots of different schemes, so they might have something.
Yes, thank you. That would be appreciated. And obviously, there are probably certain tools or models that can just be, I guess, standardized and used across all the different use cases that people have in a way. So yeah, any information that's gathered from that in the future would be appreciated to be shared across.
Okay.
Can I suggest that the team contact Cardigan Town Council? I think I do recall a few years ago receiving a presentation from them on how they're using mobile phones to develop an approach to getting people into the town centre, manage car parking, that kind of thing. So might be worth a call.
Yeah, the Cardigan Town Council do actually have, you're right, Paul, they do have a town app that monitors
Yeah, they do.
activity and everything in the town. So yeah, I can speak to Larry Maskell, isn't it, in Cardigan, see what they're doing.
Brilliant. If I could just jump in and just go back to the point that both Lyndon and Paul raised in terms of understanding needs within your community. And what is interesting is that we all naturally assume it's the elderly and those who are unable to use transport who have that need. But I think it's quite an important point, as Paul and Lyndon both touched on there, that obviously there's youth as well, there's young mothers, there's lots of people within your community who are in need of that service as well. So it is important to be open when you ask those questions and not just assume, or not just to focus on one group within your community, but to spread that net wider and keep an open mind and see what comes back and work from there. So you're providing a service that's needed as opposed to a service that you think you should be giving within your community. So I just wanted to make that point. So did someone have their hand raised there when I was speaking, or no, or did I imagine it? Okay. Anything else, any other questions for anyone else before I hand you over to Vanessa? No further questions from anyone? No, lovely. I'll hand back to you, Vanessa.
Okay, thank you. So if we've got no more questions, then we will bring this webinar to a close. And I just want to sort of take this opportunity to thank all of our speakers and everybody who's attended today for your contributions. And we hope that you are leaving with lots of ideas, people that you can connect with, and a bit of confidence in that change is possible, even in these difficult times with the sort of realms of community transport. As has been recognised today, community transport's not just about getting from A to B, it's about belonging, well-being, it's the equality for people to be able to access services and provide opportunities for people in our communities. And as community and town councils, we have a powerful role in shaping that for our residents. So this session has been part of the One Voice Wales Cost of Living Crisis Project, and we've got a lot of resources and other things that you can access through our Facebook forum and our One Voice Wales website. Lots of resources and things that are available there. And we are here supporting councils to share ideas, learn from one another, and to collaborate to sort of strengthen our communities. And if we need to support you in any way to do that, then please do not hesitate to contact us. And we hope to see you at another event soon. We will be sharing contact details for our speakers today, and any sort of relevant resources that we have, we will follow through with emails to everybody who has attended today. But do not hesitate to contact us if you need anything.
If I could just jump in as well, as you leave the Zoom meeting today, a little survey will pop up. It's literally 5 questions, and it would just be delightful to hear your feedback on today's session and how we can support you further in whatever shape or form that might be. And that's something we will most definitely follow up. So it'll pop up. If you have a minute, do fill it in. If not, that will be sent out again with the resources that you'll receive after this meeting. And yeah, if you could get that back to us, that'd be wonderful. And thank you so very much to our guest speakers today, Sandy, Paul, Lyndon. Thank you all very much for attending, for taking the time to address this really important issue. And like Vanessa says, I hope you found it really useful and really informative as well. And if you do have any questions for us beyond today, do come forward to us. If we haven't got the questions, then we'll surely endeavour to find some answers for you. Okay, so Vanessa, back to you.
Yeah, so again, thank you everybody. We have, I've just dropped in the chat our link for our Facebook forum. There's lots of relevant information around cost of living issues and funding, and lots of information there that's really useful if you want to join our group. As I said earlier, our website link is there now with all our resources from One Voice Wales, and a link for the feedback form, and we would really appreciate your feedback. So thank you again for joining us, and hopefully we will see you all in a future event.